Today I wanted to go into the value and the virtue of creating a home practice. So, hi, Shailene. Last week I was at our digital CEO conference, and it was so edgy for me to be there to like wake up at 8 a.m. every day and sit in business conference conversations. And I'm just used to waking up in the woods and having chill, slow mornings, and to like walk into a room with 800 people and dance music blaring was very intense. But regardless, the questions that came through and the transmissions that came through for me was really like what I believe is so invaluable and what has helped me along my path, and really what I want to teach to all of you that are inside of my app is to create home practices, home rituals, things that nobody can take away from you that support your health and well-being. And so I remember trying to create my like own at-home yoga practice when I was 22 and working at the accounting firm because I kept missing my yoga classes. And I just remember sitting there and like trying to figure it out and not having any resources really, so to speak, except for like remembering like little poses from the classes I was in. And so that's why I think it is so incredible that we get to be online together and that we do have access to like so much material. Like you could literally learn anything that you wanted online. I think it is incredible. There's also a lot of noise that you have to like sift through, right? But for me, I've realized that one of my favorite things to teach all of you is to share my tools with you so that you can do it at home, right? Because that's where you're sitting probably right now. Maybe you're driving. Like it just makes it accessible to you at your fingertips. And so that's why today I really wanted to get into and to really cultivate the seeds in your mind of what is your home practice? Do you have a home practice? What does that look like for you? And so that could be anything really, right? It could be meditation, it could be breath work, it could be yoga, it could be like you're stretching, it could just be like you laying down and breathing, you know? Yeah, this is what I'm working on so hard, Justine. So yeah, if you let me know in the comments, what is holding you back? What are the blocks? I've been asking on Instagram, like what is blocking you from creating a home practice? Or what is stopping you from actually having the home practice that you want? And I know 99% of you in here and on my page are women, right? And so there's men in here, but most of you are women. And so for me, I know that the things that would block me or that get in my way is, you know, being a mother, right? We take care of others. Like that is our nature first, is to think of like how everyone else is doing around us. And so also in this modern day world, this collective idea of not having enough time, right? And the biggest thing that came through on Instagram, that's why I'm curious for everyone in here what it is, but is discipline, not actually having the discipline. Interruptions block my practice and I give up. Yes, interruptions. Yeah. And so we have these ideas of like what our practice needs to look like or what our practice needs to feel like. I do want to create a home practice so I can figure out how to incorporate yoga with lifting weights. Life is so full, so finding time to fit it all in is difficult. Not knowing exactly where to start. Yeah, I woke up at 5, and so do my kids. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so as a woman, as a human, really, but as women, we are really the sorceresses, right? We are the manipulators of our households. And so our energy and how we come into our household is influencing and reflecting back everything to us. Lack of motivation and ignoring the knowing it would help. Yeah. Okay. These are beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Dedicated space. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to share with you some of the simple ways that we can cultivate this home practice. And I wanted to answer actually Nicole's question from last week because it wasn't really in line, but it's so deeply important. Is how do we find out who we are? She asked this question, like, how do I know who I am or what I'm here for? Like, where do we find this part of ourselves? And this is where a home practice can be so beneficial, because when we cultivate the space and the time for ourselves, what comes through are these questions that we have about ourselves. What am I here for? What am I supposed to do today? What am I supposed to do in this moment? How am I supposed to feel? Like, you know, when we get pulled so far away from ourselves, it's really hard to tap into the essence of who we are. And giving ourselves this space and time, right, allows us the like inner recalibration to actually listen to our heart, to listen to our soul. And why I wanted to bring this through today. And as we're approaching the winter solstice, because let's check the date, I highly doubt I'm going to be here next week because it's Christmas. Exactly. So I'm not going to come on live because I'm sure all of you are busy. But is really like winter descends down, right? All the autumn contraction that we felt, everything closing in on us, time closing down. Now I don't have enough time. Now the sun's going down earlier and earlier and earlier, right? That contraction of autumn now all pulls down in winter. And so we move from the dryness of autumn to the waters of winter, and all the rain, and however that materializes where you are, the energy is of this descent. And this descent, right, goes into our soul, because our soul, right, to come into the body, the soul has to, in a sense, descend, right? That's the energy of it. It has to slow down its frequency and its vibration to be inside of the human form. And so this descent that comes down drops us into these underground waters, these underground chambers within us, that is really what our true essence is, but also what has conditioned us to have these layers and these blocks around our true essence. And so the first conditioning is from the matrix of our family, right? Left leg kidney, the left kidney, the left leg is the mother's, and the right kidney, the right leg is the father's. And so in winter, we get this opportunity when we sit within ourselves and create these home practices and the discipline for these home practices to really start to ask ourselves, why am I here? Like, who am I? Why am I here? And what is keeping me from the person that I want to become, who is who I am at my core, right? And so you already are whole and perfect, and you already are being given everything in this moment to be exactly the fullest version of yourself. It couldn't be any different. Nothing could ever be any different, ever. Right? And so what you're working with is what you're seeing and what you're perceiving and how you're flavoring and coloring your reality. And so when we can create the time and space for our home practice, what ends up happening is we begin to come into more of who we are. Right? When you listen to your body as you're practicing yoga or breath work or meditation, maybe I need this today, maybe I need this today, you're beginning to ask yourself, what do I need today? And your mind might think, oh, you've got to do 1,000,000 squats and lift all of these weights, and you have to do this and this so that you can look like this and this and this. But your soul might be saying, I need to just breathe today. And so there's this contradiction, right? But the deeper you drop into what your body needs and give your body what it needs, it begins to trust you and give you more messages of how you can, again, become more of who you truly are, which is really just removing these blocks that are society telling you how you need to show up, your kids like thinking you need to show up a certain way, your partner thinking you need to show up a certain way, all of it, right? Like the perceptions that we had as a child of like what beauty is, of what love is, of what like financial abundance is or not, you know? And so these are the reasons to begin to cultivate a home practice. And then the question is, how do we now do that? Right? And so one of the reasons I wrote my book was so that you could have a home practice at home. And one of the reasons I'm creating these videos for you is so that you do have the resources so that you can have a practice when you want it. And so also, if you're in the virtual yoga studio, like I just take all the guesswork out and guide you through the practices, right? So you get the whole yoga practice every week. You get the breathwork practice every week. You get the full list of resources so that you are being guided through a practice that is in the comfort of your own home. But now the first step is discipline and time, right? Those are the two biggest things. And then like what that looks like, right? So whether that's creating a space for it, creating the acceptance that that space might be disturbed if you would live with other people, right? Life is never going to go how you want it to go, right? And so when we start to tackle these blocks that are hindering us from our home practice, I will say the very first block is your mind. Your mind is like, nope, got too much stuff to do. There's all the other things that need to come first before I come first. And so we need to flip that narrative. When you come first, life operates from you outwards, right? You become the center of your universe. And this is really important for women to hear, right? You become the center of your universe. And when you can replenish and fill up your well, everything else becomes an outpouring. When we don't put ourselves first, it feels like everything is taking from us. And then we feel lack, we feel resentful, we feel like we don't have enough time, we feel like we aren't getting the nourishment that we need. we start to put ourselves last. And so this is where the practice is incredibly selfish for selfless reasons, right? You have to put yourself first. And so some of the ways that I began to create a home practice was I was traveling a lot when I was learning yoga and like taking my teacher trainings and, you know, getting the certifications and just figuring out like, what does it even mean to be a yoga teacher? Like 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And I was in lots of hostels. Like I was in Asia. It was like a different traveling experience back then. I was like, am I going to make it? You know? And I would wake up at 5 a.m. before anyone in Asia would wake up because they're so noisy there. And I had this tiny hostel. And I remember just like contorting myself into these little spaces just to practice my yoga. And so there has to be a part of you that you need to tap into that knows that this is good for you, but is willing to put in the time and is willing, right, to change your circumstances, to take something away in a sense, so that you get something in return. You have to give, right, to receive. And so wherever you feel like you don't have space in your life, you're signaling to the universe that there's nothing, you're not going to receive anything. So like, you know, it's like the exhale and the inhale is the perfect metaphor for this. You exhale to create space for the inhale. When you inhale, the only point of the inhale to fill yourself up is to let it all go. And so there's this dynamic that you need to really tap into energetically of what is taking away my time or my space that I can actually clear from my field. This is where boundaries come in, right? Where boundaries are so important so that I can give more time to myself. And so you know, you really have to make a list of what is like a necessity, taking care of your child, right? You know, feeding yourself, or you know, you create like, this is what I need to do every single day to be able to survive on this planet, which is like working, like all the things that we need to do. But then where are you being inefficient with your time? Where are you giving your time away freely to places where you may not need to give away your time? Maybe it's scrolling on Instagram, right? Maybe you need to start unfollowing people that are looping you into certain right behaviors. Maybe it is Netflix, watching TV, right? Like, what is it for you? Maybe it is, you know, just getting distracted and like finding yourself somewhere else. Like these are in the deeper level, right? Signals of like disassociation when you start to devote your time to something and then you find yourself veering off. Like how many times have you meditated and you're just meditating there and then your mind starts like going off on a tangent and then you're just like you're completely somewhere else in a different time dimension than where you are now, or you're trying to meditate and all of a sudden you're like in your Instagram DMs and you're just like, whoa. So the body is always, sometimes, not always, but like it's disassociating from this moment and being in the body. And so we're practicing and we're building this muscle of being inside of the body more and more regularly, so we start to notice these disassociations where we get distracted, where we start scrolling, where we just turn on the TV to zone out, where we're really leaving our body instead of being inside of our body and seeing what our body needs. So to create the time for the personal practice, you have to let go of something. And time could mean 5 minutes. Time could mean 10 minutes. And so when you make it manageable for you and in your space and time, maybe it's, okay, my kids wake up at 5 a.m. Gosh, that's so early. Today I'm going to go to bed earlier and I'm going to wake up 15 minutes before them. And then I give myself that 15 minutes to take care of myself, depending on how old your kids are. Like my daughter knows if she wakes up early that I'm in practice. And she sits there with me and she can either practice with me, she can play, you know, she can do what she needs to do. But it's very clear that I'm like, oh, this is my time where I practice yoga. And if you wake up early, that's totally fine. You can practice with me, but I'm going to finish my practice. So I make really clear boundaries around that. Right. And then, you know, teaching your kids how to be responsible to themselves too. Right. If she's hungry, she knows how to go get food from the fridge and get a banana or whatever. Right. And so you start to make it work within your circumstances, letting the people around you know unapologetically, right. Don't feel bad about it. And if you do, of course you can. But why are you feeling bad about it? Start to question this. Right. And so even if it's 5 minutes a day, you are programming your body mind to say, for 5 minutes a day, I'm giving to me. And so you start to listen to yourself for those 5 minutes and your day will change. Your day will 100% change. You do it the next day because it felt so good. You do it the next day. And then all of the sudden, that 5 minutes has made you more clear in your body. It's given you an immense amount of focus. You're starting to realize what things would take away your time and take you away from those beautiful 5 minutes you give yourself every day. And then the boundaries become easier to say no. No, that would actually take away my time, right? And so we got to look at what parts of ourselves are people pleasers, are like willing to abandon the self for someone else, for acceptance, for validation, right? All these things come up when we're giving to ourselves because our culture never tells us to take care of ourselves, right? That's not what we're taught as a child. And so when we start to create the time through discipline, right? Through setting an alarm, maybe, and waking yourself up earlier every day, it's going to be hard at first, right? You're building a new skill. You have to show up for it, right? And so even if you just sit on your mat and you're like, oh, okay, or you put on one of my free practices and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do this today, right? You are going to eventually get to the point where it's like your body already wakes up at that time. You wake up to do it because you're starting to reprogram your day. And so when you start to reprogram your day, right, your mind knows, your body knows, you're like, oh, it's time to wake up so that you can do this thing for yourself because it feels so good, because it changes your day, because it gives you more focus, it gives you more direction, you feel better in your body, you have more energy, right? You have more clearly defined lines within your life of like what you need to do and what you don't need to do. And then it gets easier and easier to build out more time. And so one of the most fascinating things that I realized in yoga practice was every time I practiced, the more I practiced, the more time I was given. And it just, this shift starts to happen where when you learn to work in your body efficiently, like Denise said, I want to incorporate yoga and lifting weights. Like, and I talked about it, I don't remember what Q&A. Oh, I did my Q&A for the longevity series on Monday. And lifting weights in alignment is so much different than lifting weights not aligned in your body. And so now when I lift weights, right, it is really based upon my own yoga practice and how the alignment works in my own body, which is how it works in your body, right? And that's why I teach all the alignment, because then when you lift weights, you're doing it in an anatomically correct, optimal way, so that it's even the weights aren't draining you, right? Even that is giving you more energy because you're building different muscles, so to speak. And so when we're cultivating this home practice, I actually made a little gift for you. And it's not really a gift, but it's a gift. It's really what I needed to do. But inside of my app, under my free practices, I've changed it around a little bit because there's just so many videos in there. And I wanted to make it easier to use for you this winter. And so if you go in there, I have separated all of the practice between what my beginning practices would be, the poses that are like how I would start my practice, such as a reclined back bend on blocks, which is really the easiest way to start your practice. Because when you wake up and your body's like, I don't really want to move, just put blocks down and lay on them and breathe. It's so easy, right? And then like table pose, dog pose, like those are the beginning practices. And then the middle practices, the heart of the practices, are your lunges and your pigeon poses and your shoelace poses and, you know, the warrior poses, the like stronger postures, the squat poses. All those free videos are up there. And then the ending practices are like the forward folds, the seated twists. And so you just really separate your practice into beginning, middle, and end, right? And you can go into the free practices in my app, and if you have like 30 minutes, I should put the times on each one too, stay tuned for that. But you can go, okay, I'm going to do this practice and then this practice and then play it and then play it. And then you can do it, right? And that way, all of a sudden, now the barrier to like, I don't know where to begin, there you go, right? I've given you something that you can use so that you can say, okay, I'm going to do this practice and this practice today. That's going to be a practice. Even one video is a beginning and a middle and an end, right? You start, you come into the posture, you move your breath through the practice, you stay concentrated on your breath, and then you finish. And so really just knowing that like it is your mind, right? When you come to practice or you want to practice and you sit with yourself and then your mind starts telling you all the things it needs to do, it starts writing a to-do list. You have to get really creative and find ways to work with the mind that wants to be everywhere else but where it is right here, right now, which is what your true self wants to show you, you know? And so like for me, if my to-do list starts popping up, I go, okay, thank you. These are open loops in my mind that my mind doesn't feel safe right now because I haven't written these down. Right, so I'll open up my notes and I have a running to-do list and I'm like, oh yeah, I had to do that for this person. And instead of thinking about it the whole time when I'm going to practice, I just write it down and then it closes that loop. it's down now on paper. I will not forget it, or on my phone. And then I can come back to my practice. And so getting really creative with that, getting really creative, knowing that like if you get interrupted, it's fine. You can still practice, right? Or you can come back to it. Like there's no hard and fast rules for what your home practice looks like. And so, you know, when we come to a yoga practice in a classroom and we go to a yoga studio, it's like, this is the amount of time you're practicing for, and I'm going to lead you through this practice, and it has to feel a certain way. And, you know, we get these ideas that there shouldn't be noise or that like interruptions come in. But like, you know what life is? Constant interruptions. Life is constant reorientation. Life is constant disturbance. Like life is life. And so your practices are actually to allow you to adapt to life. And so knowing that when you show up to your practice, you know, light a candle. Like, what does that sacred space need to be for you? I light a candle. I light incense. I love practicing in the winter and in the darkness because it's just so sweet for me. I get so excited, right? Because it's just like such a sacred, quiet, deep time. I love waking up before the sun. And then I practice. And so maybe yours is like having your journal beside you, or having a little ritual item, or something that means a lot to you, just a symbol of like, I'm in my practice space, as a reminder that you're there, right? And again, when you create space by letting go of the things that are taking you away from what you really want to be doing, write a list of those things. What is taking me away from what I actually want to be doing right now? And it doesn't mean that you need to completely act on them, but you're bringing awareness that that is something that you do want to either remove from your life or change in your life. And the power of our words, the power of acknowledgement, the power of looking at it changes everything. And this is why, like, when we bring awareness into our practice and into how we live our life, and we create this home practice, we really begin to work with the things in our life that aren't serving us, right? We begin to gain power. Like when you empower yourself in the practice and do a pose that you've never done before, and you're like, oh my God, I did that. You're proving to yourself that you can do anything, right? And that's why when I say find something to do this winter that is like edgy, whether it's learning a craft, whether it's learning a skill, whether you're like, I actually want to learn how to build my business online because I don't want to do this job anymore. Something super edgy. Because when you prove to yourself that you can do it, like it starts to shift your mind. And then anytime an opportunity comes, or anytime something like comes where you'd be like, no, I can't do that, you're like, maybe I could do that. I'm going to give it a try. You start to develop this muscle of trusting yourself and knowing that you're capable, right? That you're powerful. And so like yoga is not just yoga. The reason to develop a home practice, yes, is to feel good. Yes, it's to like set your day on the right intention. Yes, it is to become more focused. But the bigger ripples that that creates transform your whole life, right? You are able to now step into the unknown and not be scared and not hold fear, because you keep proving to yourself again and again, yeah, I can wake up 5 minutes earlier and do this for myself. Wow, I woke up half an hour earlier today. This is incredible. Now I get 30 more minutes to practice. What a gift, right? Your body will start to calibrate to a different rhythm. And so one of the other things I really like to do is to always, and it's just available to me, and I don't know how available it is to you if you live in a city or apartment or like what it is for you, but I always go outside at sunrise and I just let the first rays of light that touch my eyes be the rays of the sun. And so this really helps to calibrate the body too, and to get the right hormones moving throughout your body for the day to support you. And so I'm curious in the comments now. Oh, I missed some of them. This is helpful. Yes, time would be great too. Truth, and start somewhere. I love the idea of a sacred start. Yeah, morning practice. Even starting first with a sacred finish night practice to sleep better. Yeah, eventually we'll feel better for morning practice when the kids get to a more independent age. Yes, and all of our kids are different ages. So yes, I practice in the morning before my daughter wakes up. From a very young age, I really worked with her sleep patterns, which was like go to bed at 7, wake up at 7, and over time, she did again and again and again, even if she didn't want to, like this quiet playtime is where you're going to be. And of course, like when she was really little, I would like give her milk and whatever else. But to really calibrate her rhythm helped me in the long run, because now when I wake up in the mornings, I wake up before her, I do my practice. When she wakes up, I've filled myself up, I'm like available to her, And then I always practice before I go to bed. And I always just do bridge pose, which is in the free practices. I do bridge pose, recline twist, and I do a plow pose, a rounded plow pose with sandbags before I go to bed. And it just drops me into the sleep space. Like I almost start falling asleep when I'm in my rounded plow pose because I'm just so used to doing that my body knows. That's another thing, is when you create these patterns in the body, you're patterning your mind. So when I come into my final night practices, I do that every single night. My body's like, oh, this is my safety before I go to bed. Like this is like a safety blanket. It's like, oh yeah, now it's time to like get sleepy and tired. Where sometimes when we're looking at our screens, I do work late at night, but I make sure I do this all the time. But if you're working right before you go to bed, your mind's not going to be able to rest. So you just create a ritual right before you go to bed. Doesn't need to be a lot of time, right? You create a ritual in the morning. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for categorizing the yoga practice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for simplifying them. To clarify, I meant the video link would be great for planning a home practice. Okay, yeah, like the video link and the thing with like the free practices is they're very informational, right? So I do talk a lot in them as well as practice. So you can go through them and really get the meat and the heart of them, and then you can bring that into your own practice space without maybe me having to be there. And I will give you a little teaser because so many of you were asking me for this and I didn't know why. I never put it all together. But with my book, a lot of you were asking me like it would be really great to like learn how to build a home practice off of this. So in the new year, the Chinese New Year, probably around then, I am going to have, and I'm only telling you guys here, but I'm going to have a course that actually has all of these different build your own home practices so that you can really learn how to have your own home practice. I'm super excited about it, like lots in the background behind the works, but it will be something that you can use all the time to guide your home practice with different ways to like sequence practices, different parts of the body that it's opening up. But for now, my free practices will be like the best way for you to get into it. Or of course, the virtual yoga studio where you just get the full length practice, which is the hour-long yoga practice and the 30-minute breathwork practice. And then you can pick and choose like how much of that you also want to do. And so it really is, it's like when we can bring our own health into our own home, right? Like when you know what to do when your ears start aching or your kids' ears start aching in a natural way, right? Like as we approach winter, and I want to talk more about winter, like in winter, we'll do more of that in these calls. But ear oil, right? Ear is a wax. And when you use like jojoba oil, which is a wax in your ears, or you can get like garlic oil, ear oil online, right? It really starts to soothe our ears because our ears are connected to our kidneys. Our kidneys are the organ of winter. And so this is sometimes what can flare up in the winter. And so there's so many ways that we can tap into our own inner well source of health, right? And for me, I find a personal practice is the best way because not only does it help you in your physical body, you got to check in with yourself every morning. And some mornings I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling like super emotional today. Like, what is up? And if we ignore those impulses and we're like feeling really emotional and we just like walk out the door and go into the world, we start to reflect back, right? Resonate like very emotional and hard experiences. And so it's really good to tap into ourselves before we start our day so we can see like, how do I feel? How are my emotions today? Right? And just checking in with our mind. Is my mind busy today? Is my mind calm today? And then I always reflect this back to nature. I'm like, what's the moon doing today? What season are we in? Like, why would this be coming up right now? And so when we know the emotions that are coming through the organs when they're imbalanced, we can then support those specific organs. And I'm going to get way more into this if you're on my mailing list and in my Instagram, just little reels on winter and how to support our kidneys in the winter. Nicole said, how do you put it in your ear and how much? You can just get any jar of ear oil online. If you don't have my Soulful Seasons ebook, make sure you go onto my Stan store in my bio and grab it because I have the ear oil I use in there. And you can just put a couple drops in. Super simple. Also, ear candles are incredible. This is like a dream. This is exactly what I needed to hear and embrace today. I need this info, trying to do these things, but sometimes life gets crazy. Winter, calming down, slow down. Yes, yes, and we need reminders. And we need reminders again and again because we are living in like the busiest of times, right? And we want to do it all, and we can do it all, right? We could literally do anything that we wanted. We are so powerful and so limitless. And then it's like, so I I joke with my friends like when we talk about like our plans for our business or like what we want to do with our lives. And I have a closet of like creative aspirations and anything that is not necessary in this moment, I pack it away in my closet, which is my notes. And I'm like, oh, I'm really inspired to do a master class on this, or I'm inspired to do this. And like all these things start flooding into my mind, and my body wants to do it all, right? And then I'm like, no, this is my closet that I'm going to put things for when the time is right. Because we only have so much time. And so we really have to pick and choose, especially if you're a creative like person, like you all are. But when you tap into like this inner well of creativity, like that, it starts to come out where it's like, oh my God, I want to do this next. I want to do this next. And you become more visionary, right? More of a dreamer, which is really like, oh, I'm capable of anything. So what is it that I want to create? Right? Closet. Yeah, literally, metaphorically. Yeah, the closet. And some of them don't ever need to happen. That's the thing. You can be inspired all you want. Like, let the inspiration come through. Move through the desires that you feel, right? You don't have to act on all those desires, but you're having this desire, which is just a frequency of something that your soul wants to act on in that moment. Let them be there. You know, there's nothing wrong with dreaming and having visions and having these desires, right? But it really gets you flowing and like, what do I need to do for myself today so that I can support my body to feel the way that I need to feel to be the best person that I can be in my circumstances, in my job, in my family, with my children, with the friends around me? What does that look like for me? And so that is why the obedience of winter is to slow down. It is to take time for yourself. It is to, in a sense, cut out the noise and not think that you need to do the millions of things that you were doing in summer because there's not enough sun in the sky. It's not natural. And so when we do that, it can be scary for people because when you start to close in on winter and become empty, which is the obedience of winter, emptiness, what arises? And when you're ready to be with what arises, it's often the things that you are not, right? You are not your job. You are not the identity that you've created. You are not the friends you have. You are not the money in your bank account. You are not all of this stuff. And under all of that stuff is the core essence of you, right? Which is your beingness. And when you can tap into that and get quiet and still and feel that, there's like nothing that needs to be done. Yet everything will happen, right? And it's one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give yourself because you just feel so held. And to feel held once is to know that you are held in eternity forever, right? And so by recalibrating yourself again and again to find that feeling of I'm completely whole as I am right now without having to do or be anything. That's it. It's like really at the base level of all of this, that's all there is. But you have to sit with yourself and you have to learn to practice. And whatever practice that is for you, of course, I'm here to teach you yoga. And for me, feel really good in your physical body, like your soul is in this body for a reason. Your soul is in this moment for a reason. Your body is in this moment for a reason, in this time dimension, in this society for a reason, right? And so just by being in the presence of that and knowing that that is perfectly perfect, right, that is perfectly okay, and that is actually exactly what you need to awaken more to who you are, that's all that there is. But you have to feel good in the body to get there, right? The destination, it's like a metaphorical endpoint, which is really right here, right now. But if your body is in pain, if you're suffering, right? If you're constantly feeling in fear, like you don't have enough money, these are things you have to look at because you need to learn to feel safe in your body. You need to learn to trust your body. You need to learn to feel that expansion so that you can keep calibrating to that in your life. And so like your physical body is what's going to get you there. And so you have to take care of it, right? It's like your house. It's like your car. It needs maintenance. It needs to be cleaned up all the time. You know, it's like it just dust builds up in it just because we're humans in a body. And so that's why, you know, we do these practices every day. It's essentially house cleaning. You're cleaning your house out so your soul can be like, okay, what are we going to do today? What are we going to create? Who are we going to see? What kind of adventure are we going to have? Right? And so if you have any other questions, pop them in the chat. We are going to be going a lot deeper into winter. A lot of the questions too that people have been asking me inside the app and in my DMs is like, how do we start to clear these ancestral patterns, right? And it's deep. It's so threaded into our soul because our soul comes into the matrix it resonates with, right? And so we're going to be diving deep into a lot of like the esoteric winter theory in these alchemy calls. But again, if anything is coming up, questions, go inside the connection space, ask them, go inside the free practices and check out the little makeover that I did. I really hope that it's useful and helpful for you. And then, yeah, just devote the time. Tell yourself you're worthy. Know that you are worthy. Give yourself 5 minutes a day, whatever that looks like for you. Don't have expectations of what that looks like. Just do it. Just do it and see what happens from it, right? Then maybe it turns into 10 minutes. Then maybe it turns into 15 minutes. You literally just touched on the questions for the Q&A. Yeah, you can ask anything, Sherry. My mantra from you for the holidays, if it isn't love, it isn't true. Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, if it isn't love, it isn't true. Yeah. I have a whole call on love one day. I have been initiated into like the most intense unconditional love this year, where it just keeps pulling back layers of my human wanting to run away. And it's like, how can I love more deeply? So yeah, so if you're in the yoga studio, the Q&A is actually at 12 o'clock, so it's in 20 minutes. If you're not in my virtual yoga studio and you do want these practices, then come join us. There is no commitment. It's $47 a month. You can cancel anytime. You get the whole library of resources. We started in September, and there's even more yoga practices than that. And yeah, that's the practice space that I have online. And then, yeah, look out for the new year. I'm really excited to launch this course. I haven't told anyone. So you guys are the first people to know. It's going to be so, so, so incredible. So yes, thank you so much, Shay. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of you for being here. Just want to check through and who Sue's in here before we say goodbye. Amazing, amazing, everyone. And I'll get the replay up for you. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, any recommendations for the app. Make sure you get into the welcome space and look at the video on how to move through the app. I know there's a ton of material in here, but I want you to be able to use it all in a really efficient and fluid way. So yeah, I'll see you everyone, not next week, but